Hey everyone, my name is Godfrey Mujungu and I'm going to study the impact of romantic relationships on the performance of students. About the dataset is concerning achievement of students in secondary education of two Portuguese schools. The data attributes include but are not limited to student grades, G1, G2, 3, demographics, social and school-related features, and was collected using school reports and questionnaires. Two datasets are provided regarding the performance in two distinct subjects, that's mathematics, math, and Portuguese language dubbed POL in Cortez and Silva 2008. The two datasets were modeled under binary 5-level classification and regression tasks. Important note Important to note is that the target attribute G3 has a strong correlation with attributes G2 and G1. More of these can be gotten from the source provided here. The investigation, however, focused on G3 for analyzing grades and the performance in Portuguese language, whereas the dataset has has Portuguese subject and then Portuguese language and also mathematics. My focus was only on Portuguese language. The other variables of interest were gender, dubbed sex herein, and relationship status, dubbed romantic. It is also important to note that the data was downloaded from cargo.com in CSV file format. Key investigations were: one, whether being in a romantic relationship correlates with higher or lower average grades; two, whether the impact, if any, is the same for each gender; then three, whether being in a romantic relationship impacts attendance, which in turn affects the average grades. I used Tableau Public to analyze and visualize the dataset. I mostly used horizontal bar charts. The correlation between the variables romantic and average grades was analyzed using the simple formula that gets the difference between the grades for those who are in romantic relationship and those who are not. I also used filters to further segregate, and both both the calculation and the filters added more spice onto the visualization and provided more clarity. The results were: one, students who are not in romantic relationships perform slightly better overall. Then two, females generally performed better than their male counterparts. And the drop in performance due to being in a romantic relationship seems slightly larger for females. Male performance stays almost the same whether they are in a relationship or not. KPIs: one, the overall grade difference, taking the average for those who are in romantic relationships and those who are not, is negative 0.6063. The average grade difference for those who are in romantic relationships versus those who are not among females is negative 0.7759. The average grade difference for those who are in romantic relationships versus those who are not among males is negative 0.6015. The impression is that on average, students in romantic relationships score 0.66 points lower in their final grades compared to those who are not in such relationships. Also, females are affected more by romantic relationships. The why part was beyond the scope of this study. Other studies can focus on the why. Relationships lead to low attendance, which in turn affects performance. This is the visualization. This was the first dashboard I created. and this is the second dashboard. This was just trying to analyze the cause and effect analysis. This was just the cause and effect analysis of romantic relationships, absenteeism, and final grades. And here I employed filters as well. Yeah. So I want to take you through Tableau public, take you through Tableau. This is how Tableau looks like. There's the file tab, data, worksheet, dashboard, story, etc. Yeah, when you click on the data source, you can see the data sources you are connected to. For example, I'm using the student for meaning student Portuguese, and this is the data in data sheet view that I'm dealing with. These are some of the visualizations that I came up with. The first one was a horizontal bar chart to analyze the overall impact, visualize the overall impact, and from this we can see that the bar for those who are not in romantic relationship is taller than for those who are in romantic relationships, meaning that the average grades for those who are not in romantic relationships is higher than for those who are in romantic relationships. I did the same to visualize the impact when it comes to gender differences. Here we can see F is rather the blue color is representing females and then orange males. So I basically used the average grades and also the romantic dimension, but then use the sex field or the gender field to spice up for coloring group. I I went ahead and I made some simple calculations in what I called overall correlation. Correlation in my context meant the difference in grades. The difference in grades for those who are in romantic relationships and those who are not in romantic relationships helped me to tell the correlation. So I actually saw that the average grade difference for those who are in romantic relationships versus those who are not in romantic relationships is negative 0.6063, implying that there is a decline in grades by that magnitude when someone enters in romantic relationship. Yeah. Then I did the same for males, and that is what I got. Then I also did the same for females to further understand the impact when it comes to gender. Maybe this what I did to come up with this figure, I actually created a new field, a calculated field. I created a calculated field. I created a calculated field. I came to the data pane. When you come to the data pane, you you select create calculated field. You give it a name. Maybe let me call it impact. Let me call it impact core, impact impact core. But then down here, I put the formula. Now, remember the correlation in my case, I'm saying is the difference in grades. So what I did was to get the average grades for those who are in romantic relationship. The average grades for those who are in romantic relationship. So I used an if statement inside the expression. If then I use square brackets to call the variable romantic. Yeah. If romantic is assigned to yes, then what? Then they should get for me the average or G3, which I'm studying, and ends there and ends there. So this helps me to get the average grades for students who are in romantic relationships, but I'm interested in the difference. That's what I want to study. So to save myself time, I just copy and paste this here. But then I change this from yes to no. So this helps me to get the difference in grades for those who are and those who are not. Yeah, then I click OK. So I now have it here. So what I did was to create a new sheet, a new worksheet, a new worksheet. Let me call it impact. Let me call it imp. So I drag this impact call to the, I drag it, I drag it to the text card. Under max card, I drag it to text. Yeah, when I drag it, I can see here that it is negative 0.6063. In case I need to add more sense to this, such as someone can know what I'm visualizing, I actually come and double click on text. Then I edit the text and I can prefix this with anything I want. For example, I can say, hey, this is the average grade difference. This is the average grade difference between students who are in romantic relationships and those who are not, and those who are not, and those who are not, and those who are not. I can play around with the formatting. I maybe highlight, I change the font style to tableau bold. I can increase the font size maybe to 14. I can maybe even highlight this and I make sure that I have put a different color to add visual to just make it more appealing. Yeah, then I click OK. When I click OK, they actually show it to me that this is the average. They now display it. So that is what I did. I did the same for male correlation and also for female correlation. Yeah, when I was done with that, I combined these sheets into dashboard one. Dashboard one, this is dashboard one. Dashboard one was just showing me this impact. Yeah, you can see from here the overall impact, then the impact on gender, then these metrics that I used. But then also I created a new dashboard. I created another dashboard for visualizing the impact of romantic relationships on student attendance and then grades to see the cause and effect analysis to see whether there is some kind of mediating factor. So what I did was to actually create a new sheet. Yeah, I created a new sheet, and on this new sheet I created a new on this new sheet, I created a new visual. In this case, what I really want to say is whether I want to see whether there's a correlation rather between attendance and student attendance and grades. Yeah. So I look for student attendance. Yeah, let me look for absence. When I look for absence, yeah, and I also look for, let me look for, I've looked for absence, then also romantic. Romantic, I drag it onto columns, then in rows, I drag absences. Automatically, it comes as a sum, that is the aggregation that comes, but what I want is to get the average. When I use the sum aggregation, they try to bring in a lot of outliers, but what I do, I use average. So I right click and I change the aggregation to average. Yeah. So from this we can actually tell that the bar for those who are in romantic relationship, or where it is yes, it's taller than for those who are not, implying that when you're in a romantic relationship, it is very possible that you will be absent. Yeah, I can rename this sheet maybe to anything I want. Let me rename it to absence. Let me rename it to absence. Let me rename it to absence. So I can just double click on the sheet name down and I rename it to absence. Yeah, automatically it becomes the title here. So if I really want, I can go ahead and I change this title, or I maintain it as it is. I can do some formatting, like if I want to leave it, I can leave it there. I can just highlight that. Then I do some formatting that I'm interested in. I like colors of late, so I just click OK. Okay, so this is absence. I I also want to create another sheet. On a new sheet, I want to maybe understand. I want to understand whether I want to understand this impact. I want to understand the impact. I want to understand the correlation between students who are absent and those who are not absent, to see whether there is an impact of being in a relationship. Yeah. So what I do, I come here and I want to create a new calculated field. I want to create a new calculated field, and I call it impact impact absence impact absence impact absence. So what do I do here? I get the average. I get the average. I get the average of students. So average into brackets if a student is in if a student is absent. Let me use absent if, then I open square brackets, absent. If the absence, yeah, let me get the average of absence. Um, Average of absences. If I wanted to get the average of if a student is in romantic relationship, so if romantic is assigned to yes, if it is assigned to yes, it is cane sensitive. The data within is cane sensitive, but the commands are not necessarily cane sensitive. If it is assigned to yes, then should get for me the average of the absence. So I close brackets. So what this is doing is actually helping me to get the average. On average, how many classes did a student who was in a romantic relationship miss? Yeah. I want to get the difference with the average of those who were not in romantic relationships. Yeah, so I can copy and paste it, but then this time around, instead of yes, I put no. Yeah, then I close. It is showing errors because I didn't end here. I didn't end, so even here, I click end. I put end at the end of the statement. that here we can say that the calculation is valid. I can say, okay, now I now have a calculated field listed here in the data pane. So what I do, I can drag it to the text card. When I drag to the text card, I can actually see it here that this is the difference. This is the difference. Yeah, this is actually the difference. The difference is higher. This implies maybe I can add more visualize. I can make it more visual for us. I can double click it and I can double click it and I say that on average, I can just say that the average difference in absences in number of days students were absent into brackets romantic romantic versus not non-romantic is, then I click this. Let me just highlight and I give it a different color. I can broaden this, can broaden them, then I click OK. So the average difference in number of days students were absent for romantic versus non-romantic is 0.764. The fact that it's positive, it suggests that those who were in romantic relationships were absent more than those who are not in romantic relationships, further suggesting that being in a romantic relationship impacts student performance. Yeah, I can also create a new sheet. I can also create a new sheet, and in this sheet, what I really want to see is, in this sheet, I want to see now the impact. I just want to see how many days on average, how many days were the other ones absent, and how many days were those ones who are not absent on average. So I can actually come here and I say, I create a new calculated field, another calculated field, maybe for us to learn again. Create, then I give it, I call it impact. Let me say absent. Let me call it absent romantic. Absent romantic. This is helping me to know on average how many days were those who are in romantic relationships absent. So I can now write here the formula. The formula I want is to be the formula I want is average. That's what I'm using, average. So I use an if statement. If whatever is under the variable romantic is assigned to true, rather is assigned to yes, then then you get for me the average of absences here, and I end close brackets. Okay. I create another one for those who are not. So let me call it absence not. Not meaning not in a romantic relationship. So I again get average open brackets, use if the romantic status is true, is yes, then get for me the average of absence. We put the variables inside square brackets and and this is no. This should be no. This should be no. This should be no. Yeah. Then I click OK. So what I really want to do is to, because I'm adding more, making it more visually appealing. So what I do is I say, OK, I drag this to my text card. Yeah, it is displayed here, and then I can I can come and I edit. I double click here to edit. Yeah, and maybe I prefix it. I say on average, I'm adding some label. On average, students who are not in romantic relationships missed missed, then I bring in the other variable, missed these classes classes. I I can highlight this. I put it in a color that I'm interested in, classes. Yeah, then I put why their counterparts their counterparts who are single, rather who are dating, missed dash classes. I can change the alignment like this. Maybe I highlight everything and I change the font style. I broaden everything depending on what I want to do. So we can see how it is appearing. On average, students who are not in romantic relationships missed 3.378 classes, while their counterparts, so I want to bring in their counterparts here for those who are in romantic relationships now. So what I also do, I drag, I also drag the other one. So I also drag the other one. Yeah. So I called it absence. You look for it. Yeah, absences. This is absences not, and this is absence. Yeah. So what I do, I drag it here. Sorry. So absent romantic. So I also drag it and I bring to the text card. Yeah. So when I bring to the text card, this is what happens. So I can just double click and I edit. They are telling me missing the field, so I can just write the field name here. So I can write the field name here if I remember it. If I don't, I will go back and I get it. So since I don't, let me go back and I get it. So I can go back and I actually do it. So what I want to do is I pick this and I also put it here. Yeah. So I can edit, you see where it comes at the end. So I just want to edit this. I double click and I edit the text. Yeah, so instead of putting it here, I cut and I paste it here. This is where it makes sense for me. I can also change its color to match this, and I broaden it as well. Then okay. So this is what saying that on average students who are not in romantic relationships missed these 3.378 classes, while their counterparts who are dating missed 4.42 classes. Again, we can see that those who are in romantic relationships missed more classes than those who are not. Suggestive, suggestive of, let me edit this and I make a conclusion because I want this to be a conclusion. I'm working on a conclusion. Yeah. Suggestive, I add suggestive of, now let me make this what let me make the conclusion. The impression is that there is a, a positive, let me keep it simple. The suggestion, the impression is that romantic relationships romantic romantic relationships impact student attendance, which in turn impacts their grades. Impacts their grades. I can just click OK and I have it here. Yeah, so that is what I have come up with. But then I want to put this in another dashboard. So to create a dashboard, you can click on dashboard app, or you can next to the icon for new sheet there is new dashboard. So I just click dashboard. Maybe let me call it cause effect. Cause effect. Cause and effect. So what do? I add now. I want to add my sheets here. So what I maybe do, I can add the other sheets that I have been working on. Yeah. Maybe I can add this one that I called imp. I add it here on this dashboard. Uh, I can add it here. I can right click and I maybe say I want to fit. I want to fit the width or the height. Yeah. When I say fit width, that's what happens. And when I say fit view, that's what happens. Yeah. That's what happens. But let me undo all these things and maybe I use containers. I can also make use of containers. Maybe if I use, for example, a horizontal container, what happens if yeah, if I use a horizontal container and I put it here and I put this here, then I can say I want this to fit. I want to fit the height. If I say I want it to fit the height, what happens? That's what happens. Yeah. Okay. But then the other thing is maybe if I wanted now to add this chart, I can also drag and I drop it here. Yeah. Uh, this is not visual appealing. You can undo until you get a layout that will work best for you. Yeah. You can undo. Let me use vertical container. If I use the vertical container and I brought in a chart here, I say I don't use, I fit it, I use the standard. Yeah. maybe I then also bring now, yeah, like that. So that is how my chart is looking. That is how my dashboard is looking like. I can put in presentation mode and you see, this is how my chart is looking like. But I want to, lastly, I want to add filters. I want to add filters. I want to add filters. Yeah, I want to add filters. Yeah, so I'm interested in adding filters. What I do, I can come back to this sheet of mine and I look for maybe the sex filter to the sex variable. So I drag it and I drop it under filters. Yeah, I I check both of them and I say okay. When I do that, the sex filter is created. So when I come back to my dashboard, let me see what happens when I come back to my dashboard and I right click, I say filters. I also have now the sex filter here. That's how I can create the filter. Yeah. So right now, what we are seeing, right now we are seeing all of them. But what if I just changed and I said, no, I actually want to visualize the impact. Yeah, I want to see students who are not in romantic relationships, the females. It gives me this. I can see for example, that on average, female students who are not in romantic relationship missed 3.164 classes, while their counterparts who are dating missed 4.165. Yeah. And let me also look at male. So I can just select for male and I see the difference. Yeah, so that's how we can use filters. This is how we can use filters. This is how we can use the different visuals. And that was the scope of my study. I otherwise want to say thank you very much for your patience, for listening to me. I hope I gave you more reasons to like the tool. I'm Godfrey Mujungu. All the best. All the best.